Storms on Wednesday and Thursday, and on Friday, expect a chance of rain.
There's a very good likelihood that some of you will be encountering some heavier showers and strong thunderstorms through the afternoon. We'll check out Storm Watch coming up in just a moment. But first of all, let's see what's happening in the tropics. And here too, we've had more than our fair share of activity. One thing that really stands out quite noticeably is the fact that we still have a hurricane swirling across the Atlantic basin. The big hurricane, that is Hurricane Alberto, and it really has a well-defined eye, the eye anywhere from about 50 to about 75 miles in diameter. Besides Hurricane Alberto, though, we still have some disturbances rolling off the African coast, and this is Tropical Storm Debby that's churning closer towards the eastern parts of the Caribbean. Right now it is drawing closer towards the Leeward Islands, and it's still rather uncertain about the exact track of this tropical storm. But let's check out some of these tropical systems. First of all, Hurricane Alberto, right now packing winds of 85 miles per hour and lifting off towards the northeast. A very unusual feature here because this hurricane has been making kind of a loop-the-loop. It's really been a long-lasting tropical system, too. We've been tracking this system since the early part of August. Now, the good news with this hurricane, though, it is a long ways away from any land areas, and it's really not affecting any land masses either, but it is posing some problems for some of the shipping interests across the Atlantic basin. Now, aside from that, the big story also continues to be Tropical Storm Debby. This one now is up to 50-mile-per-hour winds, and is generally moving off west-northwest at some 18 miles per hour. As it does draw closer, hurricane watches have been posted for some of the northern islands, including the U.S. Virgin Islands. And we also have tropical storm watches in effect, too, for some of these islands across the Leeward Islands here, especially just north of Dominica. So, again, we could likely see some very squally conditions with the weather going downhill maybe quite quickly in the next 24 to about 46 hours or so. Now, here's our satellite perspective of Tropical Storm Debby, and we have really been seeing some very deep convection concentrated right around the center of circulation. At least from our satellite perspective, it does look fairly impressive, and it is showing signs of strengthening, and we do expect some slow strengthening to be continuing at least for the next 24 hours or so. And again, the exact track with the system still kind of up in the air, but some of the forecast models do take it right across the extreme northern fringes of the islands. So it's something that we certainly have to watch very closely over the next couple of days or so. Across the Gulf, things are looking relatively quiet. Just a little flare-up of some scattered showers around the coastal waters, and that's basically just about it. Now, the rest of the islands, though, across the Caribbean looking in fine shape this morning. Relatively quiet for Cuba and Jamaica, and fairly quiet, too, around Hispaniola and Puerto Rico. Farther out towards the Atlantic, though, another tropical wave coming off the coast. It's currently approaching the Cape Verde Islands. And across the eastern Pacific, we've had a few clusters of showers and storms. Nothing is very well organized at this point, but we'll have to watch it for the potential for some development. And lastly, we head over towards the Far East, and here we have Typhoon Belize. And this one is really packing quite a wallop. It's right now a strong Category 2 typhoon, and it's likely to be working its way and turning closer towards Taiwan over the next couple of days or so. Our biggest concern, perhaps wind gusts over 150 miles per hour around Taiwan in a couple of days, and certainly some flooding rains too spreading across Taiwan later in the work week. Of course, we'll give you further updates as they become available. And now let's check out the weather stateside, and we might be seeing some really rugged conditions for a few areas. Perhaps some severe weather plaguing the Midwest, and strong to severe thunderstorms too cannot be ruled out for the Gulf coastal region. As we're watching our frontal boundary slowly sagging southward, and as it butts up against some warm, humid conditions, it looks as if the atmosphere will be primed for those heavier showers and storms. Overnight, some drenching rains for Atlanta, but now most of that has shifted to the south. And as we continue throughout the day, the low across the heartland will also be deepening and intensifying. It will soon be drawing up more of that moisture from the Gulf. And here, too, we think the atmosphere will really be prime and very conducive for some heavier showers and storms, watching out for very heavy rains for parts of the Midwest and around the Gulf coastal region. Now let's look ahead. We'll check out the forecast.
The forecast for your area. Expect a chance of thunderstorms on Wednesday and Thursday, and on Friday, expect a chance of rain.
Tropical weather making news now in the Caribbean, Atlantic, and Gulf. Things have been heating up over the past couple weeks, and Debby is our latest concern. It's a very strong tropical storm. To get the latest analysis on what its impact will be and where it may be headed, let's go out to our hurricane expert, John Hope.
Well, thank you very much indeed, Mike, and we have some urgency here because this tropical storm is almost a hurricane. The winds are up now to 70 miles an hour. And it's moving toward the west at more than 20 miles an hour, so that is going to be in the islands before very long, into the Leeward Islands, and not much later than that, it'll be affecting the Virgin Islands and Puerto Rico. Let's go ahead and show you the latest information we have from the National Hurricane Center. The latest advisory at 11 o'clock, centered at 15.7 and 57.3, and that's only 200 miles now to the east of the Leeward Islands right there. And the wind 70 miles an hour, moving toward the west at 22. Now, we don't very often see tropical storms or hurricanes move that fast, especially at that latitude. So this one is coming rapidly, and that means that you've got to go about your preparations here with some urgency. Now, let me review the warnings. We have hurricane warnings up now for the U.S. and the British Virgin Islands, for Antigua, Barbuda, and Guadeloupe. And then to the west of that, we have a hurricane watch out for Puerto Rico, this right here. And we also have a hurricane watch out for the island of Dominica in the Caribbean. Now, in addition to that, we have a tropical storm watch out also for the island of Dominica. So these are hurricane warnings for the Virgin Islands and for the northern Leeward Islands, and that means you must rush to completion any measures that you want to take to contend with this tropical storm, Debby. Almost a hurricane, very likely will be a hurricane by the time it gets there, and that's why we have hurricane warnings up. Now, what we are seeing here, however, is the fact that the circulation center is right about there, right on the very edge of what we call the CDO, or the central dense overcast, and that means that there's some shear going on there. The shear primarily is because this low-level system is moving so rapidly. We don't have a lot of westerly winds at high levels, but that is enough so that the center is literally running out from under the CDO a little bit. And the good news is that's keeping it from getting organized very rapidly. Nevertheless, it is picking up a little strength in spite of that. Looking at the infrared picture here, we can see that. And you notice this west end of it sort of seems to slow down just a little bit. And that's indicative of that shear, and the reason I'm emphasizing that is it's caused it to weaken. But nevertheless, that is going to be in the islands. It's going to be in there shortly, and it's certainly you're going to have hurricane force winds, or very near hurricane force winds, a lot of heavy rain, a lot of high tides coming in on the windward side of the islands, or the eastern side. Now, in addition to that, we still have Alberto out here, is noted for its longevity. It's been there ever since the 4th of August, the longest lived hurricane we've ever had in the Atlantic in the month of August. Still very much intact and not moving very fast, but concern only the shipping. Nothing else to worry about. Here are the remnants of Chris right there. No sign of regeneration. Nothing out here in the Atlantic that we need to worry about at all. And we did want to tell you, though, that in the Western Pacific, we have a super typhoon about to hit Taiwan tomorrow. The winds are up to 155 miles per hour. That's it. Now let's get back to Mike.
Back here in the lower 48, not a lot of rough weather expected this afternoon. We do keep an eye on the Gulf Coast, much like we did this time yesterday, for some severe weather and heavy rains. And then in the Plain States, again, showers and thunderstorms overnight. Still some showers now around the KC area. And we could see an isolated storm or two as we go on through the afternoon and evening. Northeast, Great weather, west still hot and dry. More details on your forecast and another look at Debby and its projections coming.
Leave it to you, Terry. A computer that goes with your outfit.
I'll tell you what, this compact really goes with Howie. Good grades.
How's that?
It comes with educational software, and you can choose from 30 titles. It's the Compact Creative Learning Series only at Radio Shack, and now you can even choose the color.
Your extended forecast.
Thanks for joining us for Storm Watch, which is sponsored by Daewoo. I'm Christina Abernathy. We'll take a look at a few areas that are getting some wet weather across the country coming up in just a moment. But first, it's time for our tropical update with Dr. Steve Lyons.
Well, thanks, Christina. We've been monitoring our tropical storm Debby that's forecast to become a hurricane and is zooming in very quickly on the northern islands in the Caribbean. I'm showing you this last satellite image here before it gets dark because we can very well define the circulation center, easier on the visible than on the infrared. And as we put that in play, we can see the center is that circle right there, just on the western edge of that big clump of thunderstorms that's just developed. Now, this is a very asymmetric tropical storm right now. All the strong winds, all the heavy rain, all the bad weather is on the north side of the system. The south side, the winds are fairly light, and there's not much rain, although there will be some rain bands that sweep through some of the southern islands. But as you see, most of it's to the north. So if you end up being on the south side of this circulation, you're going to be in pretty good shape, I think, at least for the islands here. So the circulation center is right on the western edge of that big clump of thunderstorms here on the infrared. You can see then this area down to the south looks like they're in pretty good shape. Guadeloupe, Dominica, Martinique, you probably won't see too much in the way of heavy rain and strong winds. But anything north of there, you're potentially in some pretty bad weather the next 24 to 36 hours. Some heavy rain, some gusty winds. Now, none of these winds right now appear to be strong enough to do any significant damage, but nevertheless can be pretty nasty. Now, here's the latest from the Hurricane Center at 5. Winds 70 miles per hour, and the system is moving very quickly. West at 22, and it has just a slight northward component to it, so it's not going due west, but it does look like it's going to go north of Guadeloupe. Pressure's 1,004 millibars, and the Air Force Reserve hurricane hunters are out there right now. Now, the anticipation is that this is going to become a hurricane just before it makes landfall, and that's why we have hurricane warnings up, basically for all of the above islands here now, including the Virgin Islands and Puerto Rico, both British and U.S. Virgin Islands, as it moves off to the west-northwest. And the winds right now don't appear to be that strong that they're going to do significant damage, but keep in mind the higher elevations, the higher mountain peaks on some of these islands are going to feel the strongest winds. And right now the wave action doesn't appear to be all that strong with the system, so seas and surge don't appear to be a big problem in the islands. The system is fairly weak right now. Now, when we look at the upper level circulation here, the circulation center is there, but out ahead of it we see all southerly flow. So if this does intensify into a hurricane and continue to intensify, the upper level flow will give it a little bit of a northward component or push to it. And so based on that, we have a track that's generally to the west-northwest, followed by a little bit of a more northward track there out in time. So you can see early tomorrow morning on the islands, by late in the afternoon it's heading toward Puerto Rico, then on the next day into the Dominican Republic, and then by Thursday morning it's past the Caicos and heading off somewhere in the general direction of the Bahamas. And watch out for the United States. You should be monitoring this very carefully in the southeast, particularly Florida. Make sure you're tracking it carefully, and we'll give you the latest information. Now, we have another feature out there as well that we're very interested in, and that's a super typhoon in the western Pacific. It's about ready to make landfall in Taiwan in the next 24 to 30 hours. If you're heading that way, be very careful. Let's get back to the studio now with Christina.
All right, thanks a lot, Dr. Lyons. Well, we are seeing a lot of quiet weather across the U.S. We do have some rain and thunderstorms along the Gulf Coast and along the Mississippi Valley, and we could see more stormy weather here through the Plain States. But again, a lot of us are seeing quiet weather. Take the Northeast, for example. Just about everywhere it's calm for you except in Maine with a few scattered showers. Showers and thunderstorms have developed once again in Florida, back into Louisiana and Arkansas. More activity here in Iowa and Missouri, and we may see storms moving into Colorado, into Nebraska, into Kansas, and finally in the west, showers and thunderstorms in the Four Corners region. But these are the areas to watch for severe weather. And stay tuned. We'll have more details next on Weather Center.
This program was sponsored by Daewoo Motor America. Daewoo, get to know us.
The surprisingly affordable Leganza from Daewoo. At less than $19,000, no other car is taken low.
On Wednesday, we'll have temperatures in the low 80s. With some isolated thunderstorms. Expect fair skies on Thursday and Friday.
We are watching some storms this evening moving into eastern Colorado as well as into Kansas. We'll have a close-up look at those in just a few minutes, but we begin by talking about the tropics. And as we look into the tropics, into the Atlantic Ocean, what's grabbing our attention tonight is Tropical Storm Debby as it moves closer to the Leeward Islands. Right now it is just 55 miles to the east of Antigua. Winds in the storm are around 70 miles an hour, but again, we're not feeling those winds just yet into the islands. Winds right now have been gusting up to around 20 to maybe 30 miles an hour in some of the some of the islands right now. In St. Thomas, we've had a report of around 20 to 30 mile an hour gusts. But again, those are from the outer bands coming ahead of the storm. We still haven't seen the actual center move into the island. So it is pushing to the west northwest, and that track is expected overnight to continue, and it should be into the U.S. Virgin Islands by around 9 o'clock in the morning, and then be pushing into eastern Puerto Rico by 11 o'clock tomorrow morning. So we have several watches and warnings in place for these islands. Hurricane warnings from Puerto Rico as far south as Guadeloupe, and also we have warnings out and watches out for portions of the Hispaniola Island, because we do anticipate that the storm to move into this area, and as it moves close to this area, it's very mountainous, we could be seeing the winds start to die down, but then we do anticipate that the winds do increase as it generally gets into the southern Bahama Islands. And if you are in the southern Bahama Islands, you are underneath a watch for later on anticipated for this storm to get closer to you. So this is the projected path of Debby. We do anticipate it to strengthen over the next 24 to 48 hours and perhaps be increasing up to a hurricane. And as it gets into this general area, it could still be a hurricane with the winds around 80 miles an hour. So certainly if you live in Florida and through the Bahamas, you need to keep a close eye and monitor the situation. Again, with this storm moving through the Leeward Islands, the Northern Islands tonight, and into the U.S. British Virgin Islands by tomorrow, we can be expecting perhaps 5 to 10 inches of rain throughout the islands. And then through the higher elevations, the mountainous parts of the island, the rain could be a little bit higher. So it does look like we'll see some rain from this storm. The good news, if you are on the southern end of the storm and through Guadeloupe and the island southward, we're not anticipating as much from this system, as a lot of the convection, a lot of the intense convection, an intense atmosphere with this is located in the northern portion of the system. So that's the latest on Tropical Storm Debby. We'll continue to update you throughout the evening, so you want to stay here on the Weather Channel and as well as throughout the day tomorrow. We have another system. This one's a hurricane. Hurricane Alberto is still moving throughout the Atlantic Ocean. Winds right now at around 85 miles an hour. Again, expected to push to the north and really not affect any landmass. Now, as we go into the Gulf of Mexico, pretty quiet night across the Gulf, but coming offshore, we do notice a few showers and thunderstorms from thunderstorms from earlier today across Florida. This is the Pacific. This is super typhoon, a Category 5 hurricane going right towards Taiwan, and within the next 24 hours this could be a catastrophic event for Taiwan, as it does look like they'll have a direct hit from the typhoon. This is very much like a Category 5 hurricane in the Atlantic. Winds could be gusting up to 200 miles an hour. They are expecting perhaps 2 to 3 feet of water, of rain with this super typhoon. So again, a devastating situation perhaps on tap for the Taiwan area. Meanwhile, let's go back into the lower 48, show you these strong thunderstorms pushing into eastern Colorado, moving into western portions of Kansas. And we also have some rain across portions of the southeast tonight. But again, all the thunderstorms seem to be dying down, moving down into the Gulf of Mexico, some pushing into portions of Texas. And as we look across the Midwest,